All right, Pentagon press briefing. Hopefully we can actually get some information from the Pentagon, saying how the White House has not given a brief for what seems like over a week by now, maybe 2 weeks. Trump used Arlington Cemetery to make a TikTok video yesterday. I didn't see that, but I'll look it up.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a few things at the top, and then happy to take your questions. First, Secretary Austin welcomed Polish Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Defense Kosiniak-Kamysz to the Pentagon today. The two leaders discussed the ongoing war in Ukraine and how Putin's war of choice continues to threaten our shared security. The Secretary commended Poland for its exceptional leadership on Ukraine, including providing vital logistics support and substantial security assistance. The Secretary also thanked the Deputy Prime Minister for supporting the nearly 10,000 American troops deployed in Poland that ensure NATO can deter and, if necessary, defend against aggression. Secretary Austin also spoke by phone with his Romanian counterpart, Minister of National Defense Tolver, earlier today. They discussed the strength of the U.S.-Romania bilateral defense relationship, our partnership within NATO, and Russia's war in Ukraine. The two leaders reaffirmed their unwavering commitment to bolstering the defense of NATO's eastern flank and reiterated their continued support for Ukraine to defend itself against Russian aggression. A full readout of both the Secretary's bilat and phone call will be posted later today on defense.gov. Speaking of Ukraine,
So I saw a little bit about this. This is what Paul is talking about. It says Donald Trump, Arlington Cemetery TikTok ripped by ex-staffer, disgraceful. So yeah, he did take a TikTok video here. There was a confrontation between some Trump staffers and this guy who was basically saying that you cannot film in the Arlington Cemetery. But I also saw another article earlier where this guy said he's not going to press charges and they're pretty much just going to let it go. So you can kind of leave it for what it is. Was Trump not supposed to film there? Yeah, he's definitely not supposed to film there. So you can kind of think like disgraceful. You know, you can kind of draw your own opinion on what you think about it.
tomorrow, Secretary Austin will host Ukrainian Minister of Defense Umerov here at the Pentagon. While I won't get ahead of that meeting, I will say that you can expect the Secretary to reaffirm the United States' unwavering support for Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. He will also receive a battlefield update, including on Kursk. And looking to next week, Secretary Austin will travel to Ramstein to host an in-person meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. This will be the 24th meeting of the UDCG since Secretary Austin formed the group in April 2022. The Secretary will be joined by Chairman Brown in Ramstein and will convene ministers of defense and senior military officials from nearly 50 nations to discuss the ongoing war in Ukraine and the continued close coordination by the international community to provide Ukraine with the necessary means it needs to defend itself. Switching gears to the Middle East.
There we go.
Earlier this week, the Cape Trinity arrived from Cyprus to the port of Ashdod and has begun the process of unloading the remaining pallets of humanitarian aid. And that's approximately 6 million pounds of aid to be distributed within Gaza. The offloading process is expected to take between 4 to 6 days. Once complete, the Cape Trinity is slated to make a stop in Greece to unload a portion of its crew and then will depart for its home station. Switching gears again, the Department of Defense recently received a request for assistance from the Department of Homeland Security for additional military support capabilities to be afforded to major presidential and vice presidential candidates. The Secretary of Defense approved the request and directed the commander of U.S. Northern Command to plan and provide and execute increased support to the United States Secret Service at various locations across the United States during the 2024 election campaigns. The Department of Defense will provide protective support and that will continue through the election on November 5th, 2024, with anticipated continued support to the president-elect and vice president-elect through the inauguration of January 20, 2025. And finally, yesterday, the 2024 Paralympic Games officially kicked off with opening ceremonies in Paris. This year, the department is proud to be cheering on 3 U.S. service member athletes who will be competing in these Paralympic Games. U.S. Army Sergeant First Class John Ross and U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Kevin Wynn will compete in the 50-meter mixed rifle event. and U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Elizabeth Marks will compete in 7 different swimming events. On behalf of the department, we're rooting for you. Go Team USA. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
All right, here is the good part. This is what I'm here for. Here to hear some questions. Paul says Trump is just a dick. Chad says NATO hasn't deterred anything. And Never Forget says good grief. Let's see what they have to say.
All right, I've got 3 topics for you, but first on the extra support to Secret Service.
Sure.
What does that mean in practical terms? Are we going to see National Guardsmen patrolling sites? What's been asked for?
Jeez.
For more specifics on that, Tara, I would direct you to the National Guard and Secret Service. I don't have that level of specificity. So I think Secret Service could better speak to their request on that. So I direct you there.
But under what authorities are they operating?
I direct you to Secret Service on that.
Okay. Secondly, to get back to
The lady was mad.
the 3rd anniversary of Abbey Gate and the Trump campaign's appearance at Arlington National Cemetery, U.S. federal law says that Army national cemeteries will not be used in partisan or political activities. Did the Trump campaign break the law by filming an ad there?
So this is actually what you were talking about earlier, Paul.
Look, for anything regarding any campaign ads, I would direct you to the campaign to speak to that, to the Trump campaign. Yeah. What I can tell you is that, and I think the Army recently put out a statement earlier today that kind of went through what exactly happened in the incident. You can go on Arlington National Cemetery's website. It's very clear, the rules.
I might, I don't want to see the rules. I want to see their comment about it.
And regulations. What I'll say about the mission of those that work at Arlington National Cemetery, these are people who are dedicated to honoring our fallen heroes. And they maintain that hallowed ground. They work with the families in honoring those who have had their loved one lost. I'm just not going to go beyond what the Army has said, other than that, there was a report that was filed, but subsequently that person decided not to press charges. And so we're just going to, we stand by the Army statement that this matter is closed.
Why would the Army close the matter? If the person has decided not to press charges, the Army could still pursue it without that person pressing charges. But secondly, the fact of filming an ad on a national cemetery, if the Army doesn't further pursue this with either civil penalties or whatever can be done, what's to stop the next person from filming a political ad there?
Well, what I would say is the rules are very, very clear. They're also online and available on the Arlington National Cemetery website. That is really a decision that the Army has to make. That's not one that the department is making. That's for the Army to make. The Army considers this matter closed. The department stands behind the Army on that. Jen.
So, Sabrina, I'm trying to understand, in your understanding, what happened at the cemetery.
Yeah. And also, I'm sorry, you had also, just to go back to your earlier question on under the authorities, I direct you to the National Guard on that because it's going to vary on location. So I'm sorry, I should have been a little bit more specific. I would just refer you to the National Guard under what authorities those guardsmen are going to operate.
So I actually do have the statement from the Army. Chad says, I thought it was just assumed that Trump breaks the laws all the time these days. Yeah, usually. So let me pull it up. So here's a statement from the Army. It says, the U.S. Army said an employee at Arlington National Cemetery who tried to ensure adherence to rules that prohibits political activities at the cemetery was abruptly pushed aside, but that the employee decided not to press charges against Trump or Trump's campaign staffers who allegedly pushed her. The statement Thursday comes in response to NPR's reporting on former President Donald Trump visiting to Arlington and an altercation his staff had with a cemetery employee. So where's the actual statement? Participants in the August 26th ceremony and the subsequent Section 60 visit were made aware of federal laws, Army regulations, and DoD policies which clearly prohibit political activities on cemetery grounds, the statement said. An ANC employee who attempted to assure adherence to these rules was abruptly pushed aside. Consistent with the decorum expected at ANC, this employee acted with professionalism and avoided further disruption. The incident was reported to the JBMHH, police department, but the employee subsequently decided not to press charges. Therefore, the Army considered the matter closed. So what the reporter here is trying to press back and say is, well, yeah, the individual doesn't want to actually press charges on the campaign staffer who pushed this person aside, but maybe the Army should be looking out for these people and they should bring up charges of their own. Now, typically, the Army is probably not going to do that if they can they don't want all the controversy for the Army, right? They don't want to deal with it. They can kind of die down all the controversy, not deal with it. That's what the Army typically is going to do. They don't want the heat. They're not going to do anything.
In terms of your question on what exactly happened, I'd refer you to the Army to speak more to the actual incident itself. My understanding is that the families had invited, a few guests to attend a ceremony earlier this week. And there was some type of incident that happened between an employee at the ANC and a member that was traveling with another group's party. For more details on that, I'd refer you to the Army to speak to that.
Incident is a very sanitized word. What actually happened?
From my understanding,
Was it verbal assault? Who did what?
From my understanding and from what the Army said is that an ANC employee who attempted to ensure adherence to the rules of the ANC was pushed aside. The employee acted with professionalism and decorum, but there was a bit of an incident that did happen.
So there are two different issues here. There's a potential assault charges that the person has decided not to bring, but there's also federal law that was broken, as Tara mentioned, filming a campaign ad or using campaign propaganda with the backdrop of these of the cemetery. Can't the department refer that to the Justice Department for pursuit?
That's really, yes,
They're
that
not
can
gonna do
happen,
that.
but that is a decision that the Army would have to make, and that's not my understanding is that the Army is considering this matter closed. But in terms of, just to get to your broader question on political ads, that's not something that the department has a say over. That's something that gets adjudicated at the FEC level and between campaigns. So that, for anything that's used in an ad, I would refer you to the campaigns to speak to that.
It is a federal law not to use what is essentially a base that is controlled by this department. And the defense secretary could overrule the Army. Why is he deciding not to overrule or get involved in this?
Look, what we want to focus on is the fact that the people that work at the Arlington National Cemetery every single day do so with dignity, work to preserve the memories of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and ultimately work with the families who visit Arlington National Cemetery. And, there are nearly, I think it's like 3,000 public ceremonies that are conducted at Arlington National Cemetery every single year without incident. The rules and regulations are very, very clear. What happened earlier this week is very unfortunate. It's really the decision for the Army to make and to pursue any other path forward. The department right now is not doing that. And the Army, we stand behind the Army in considering this matter closed.
He has no respect for anybody. You're talking about Trump. Trump said she had mental issues. And so I just want to be very clear that it wasn't Trump that pushed this Arlington Cemetery member aside. It was somebody on his staff. So Trump probably wasn't even there when they were setting this stuff up. He wasn't really involved in the conflict. Just to make that clear, it wasn't him assaulting anybody. As a military member, I can honor and tradition, but is this any worse than the staffer who made an adult video in the Senate hearing room? I mean, I see your point there. As far as I know, Trump wasn't filming anything disrespectful. Did he break the law? Yeah, it sounds like his campaign broke the law, and it's something he shouldn't do, for sure. The reporter is really pushing this matter. Yeah, she really wants to stir up some controversy. The Army just wants to drop it. They don't want any heat. They're trying just to get over this.
Okay.
Sorry, but on the National Guard Association appearance by former President Trump, there were National Guardsmen in uniform who stood up and cheered what was a political speech at the event, a campaign-style speech. Is that against the rules?
Oh man, oh Jesus. So I can tell you, definitely my time in uniform. They tell you that you obviously can't go to any campaign rallies in uniform. You can't have any. You can't give any statements in reference to the military. So they assume obviously if you're in uniform, you're endorsing something, whatever the cause is, and that's going to be a reflection of the Air Force, or in my case, the Air Force. But what the Army here would be endorsing whatever you're cheering for. This lady's just kind of she's trying to find any little thing to bring heat to the Trump campaign. You probably had some young Army guy, he supports Trump and he cheered. Get over it. If I could see, like, if he was actually out there, like at a Trump rally, MAGA town somewhere, and he's in the crowd, he just happened to show up in his uniform. Yeah, grill his ass then. But he's performing duties in the cemetery. If he wants to cheer for Trump, fuck off. Come on. Army is trying to lay low in case Trump becomes commander in chief. Exactly. They don't want to deal with this. The photo they took? What photo? Yeah, they're photos of Trump, in the cemetery. Who cares? I like her trying to actually grill the young Army dude. That dude could lose his career for her dumb ass. Like, just leave him alone.
I believe that was I don't know enough about that event, honestly, so I just don't want to speak to it from here. I'm happy to look into that and come back to you.
I think so, yeah, I think that it is against the rules.
Warren.
Then why'd you ask?
Ukraine lost an F-16. Has Ukraine communicated that to the U.S.? Does the U.S. have any sense of whether it was down by Russian fire or by something else? And has Ukraine asked the U.S. for any assistance in the investigation?
I've seen the reports. I'm not aware of any assistance or request for assistance from the Ukrainian side to us about this particular incident. But I'd refer you to the Ukrainians more to speak to any specifics on this pilot. Yes.
Thanks, Sabrina. A little bit of background to the question is, American troops are being attacked in Syria, Iraq, and from Yemen. Terrorists in those countries are also attacking Israel. So whose responsibility is it to stop the attacks and the attackers? And I have a follow-up.
Well, that's a pretty broad question. But as you know, since October 7th, we have been postured to defend Israel. I'm not going to go through the all the things that we have done in terms of moving our forces to the region to de-escalate tensions. What I can tell you is that our forces, as you probably are aware, we have 2 carrier strike groups in the Central Command AOR. We also have assets in the Eastern Mediterranean. They're there to protect our forces. They're also there to help defend Israel should we need to defend Israel. And of course, we will always take care of our troops, whether they be in Iraq and Syria. And we've maintained the force protection to do that. And you had a follow-up?
Yeah, the follow-up is, since terrorist groups within Syria, Iraq, and Yemen are proxies of Iran, then why isn't the Pentagon stopping the source, which is Iran?
So I will tell you that we always reserve the right to respond at a time and place of our choosing. When we have been attacked, whether it be in Iraq or Syria, we have responded. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I will go to the phones and then happy to come back in the rooms. Idris, Reuters.
Hey, Sabrina, just, quite well, getting a statement through the different layers can be quite tricky, given that this was quite an extraordinary statement and quite rare for the Army to come.
So they lose a multi-million-dollar plane, and that reporter is still mad about a picture in the cemetery. Priorities. I'm mad. I can understand her being mad about the political stuff going on in the cemetery, but the way she tried to throw the private under the bus, the trouble that poor kid could get into for that. Fuck her. Like, really? I'm heated about that.
Come out and say what it did say. Did they go through OSD? Did they go through the White House before putting the statement out? Or were you not aware of it? And was the secretary not aware of it before it was put out?
You want us to go through an approval process checklist of internal deliberations, Idris? I'm just not going to do that, but we are aware of the statement that the Army issued, and we support what the Army said. All right, next question, JJ Green, WTOP.
Thanks, Sabrina, for this. To the question about the F-16 that crashed in Ukraine, killing the pilot. Can you say how many F-16 U.S.-made F-16s are in Ukraine or are on their way or will be sent there? And what, if anything, can you say about that incident more than what you said to Oren?
Jay, unfortunately, this will not be very satisfactory to you, but I'm just not going to get into numbers of how many F-16s are in Ukraine. That's something for them to speak to. That opens up a lot of operational.
The pick was just odd for it being a memorial, and it looked like he was at a celebration. For me, it speaks to his character and agree about the kid. And so let me just tell you something about the military. I agree with you. He shouldn't have been doing it, but that's where the crusty sergeant comes in. Let the sergeant handle it. Don't bring all of this media attention to it, because then they're going to actually penalize him for being dumb. The kid, yes, he did something dumb, but he's probably just a young, dumb private that needs the crusty sergeant to come there and mentor him and tell him that what he's doing is stupid. You're not allowed to do that in uniform. It's probably some kid 18 years old, and they're going to bring him up here on national news and call him out. Like, come on. Keep it to the campaign. Don't criticize the guy who signed up to give his life for the military, right?
Security issues as well. So I'm just not going to be able to speak to that. In terms of the incident and the pilot that, has been referenced and that Oren had asked about earlier, I'm just not going to be able to provide more. That's really something for Ukraine to speak to. We have been, as you know, training pilots here in the United States. I will say that, broadly speaking, combat aviation is
totally agree. Yeah, let the sergeant smoke his ass, do all the push-ups. He learns his lesson. He's a young dude, did something stupid. Let's move on. Don't bring it up here to, I don't know, stir up controversy to sell for the media. Like, it's a kid. Fuck off.
Incredibly complex. And we've been very proud to train some of the pilots here in the United States, and not just here, but our partners and allies through the UDCG are also training Ukrainian pilots on F-16s. And, every day that they fly those aircraft, these are brave men and women going up there to defend their skies and to defend their country. And so we're very proud to have been part of training some of those here in the United States. But I just don't have more to add on that particular incident.
He'll definitely get a talking to, but things like this brought up on the news, that makes an issue like that go from, oh, he's going to get smoked, to, oh, now we're getting Article 15s and we're ending your career. When really it's something that, again, they should let the sergeant handle it and not elevate it to an officer level where he's actually getting punished. If you want war, vote for Harris. All right.
I'll take one more from the phone and then happy to come into the room.
It's getting cold in here.
Sorry. I think Eric Schmidt,
down.
New York Times.
Come on, phone. Ask your question.
Charlie.
Thank you, Sabrina.
There we go.
Going back to the F-16.
Sure.
American trained pilot, American equipped F-16s, including, I think, a new electronics warfare package, American advised, which is still going on. Are you telling we're not tracking? We don't have the reason for what happened when it has consequence for the United States?
I'm just telling you that I cannot confirm the incident. I'd refer you to the Ukrainians to speak to their own operations.
We, as the United States, are tracking the F-16s that we've
appreciate the question, but I'm just not going to get into any more specifics about the incident.
Changing gears, you would say. It seems the Houthis have been acting up again. Do we have a force presence in the Red Sea?
Through Operation Prosperity Guardian, between the U.S. and our allies and partners, we always maintain a presence within the Red Sea. I can't speak to specific ships that are there right now, but we do have, through partners and allies, a presence there. Janie.
Thank you, Sabrina. Two questions. It is reported that North Korea registered 13 submarines with the International maritime organization. This can be seen as an intention to wage war overseas. What do you think of the background to this?
I'm not aware of that report, Janie, so I just don't have anything to offer on that one.
Can I?
Yeah, sure. You have a follow-up? Yeah.
North Korean Kim Jong-un declared support for Putin's war in Ukraine. And could this be seen having international military training in mind, such as with North Korea, Russia, or China?
That's really for North Korea to speak to. It's not a
War between who, just in general? He's probably talking about Iran, Russia, China for sure. The people demanding harsh punishment are probably the same ones that are, I could have enlisted because of I couldn't have enlisted. Sorry, I don't know. I couldn't have enlisted because if a drill instructor got in my face, I'd knock them out type of people. Exactly. It's definitely those type of people. Why she was so adamant about wanting punishment for the private, I have no idea. Why she even brought that up, it's stupid. I don't know what she's even getting at. I do want to throw this up here just in case people are lost on what's going on with the plane. CNN is reporting that a top Ukrainian pilot was killed when U.S. made F-16 fighter jet crashed. So it says a top Ukrainian pilot was killed when a U.S. made F-16 fighter jet crashed on Monday, just weeks after a long-awaited plane arrived in the country. A Ukrainian military source told CNN. So apparently they were in some kind of aerial attack where they were shot down. That's kind of what they're referencing here. They already buried the pilot, so that's pretty much what she's getting at here.
Surprised that North Korea has pledged support to Russia. We've spoken about that pretty publicly. We've spoken about the fact that DPRK continues to provide capabilities to Russia that they're using on the battlefield in Ukraine. We can only really speak to what we're doing. And what we're doing, Janie, is through the UDCG. The Secretary convenes, 50 countries and partners around the world to support Ukraine and its battle on what it needs on the battlefield. There's going to be another meeting next week. That's another opportunity for allies and partners to come together to ensure that Ukraine has what it needs on the battlefield. But I'm just not going to speak for the DPRK.
You can't kill the ghost of Kiev. Yeah, right. I did some stupid shit when I was younger, still do occasionally. Exactly. He did some stupid shit. He shouldn't have did it. It's against the rules. Let him move on, Let him learn from it. Don't end his career and not let him learn a lesson. Fake news that Russia shot the plane down, or fake news that, I don't know, they were drunk and they fell out of the sky. What are you talking about?
Thank you very much, Sabrina. There has been domestic criticism that U.S. is spending too much as compared to its allies to protect the interest of allies. Even Donald Trump said that it will insist NATO members to spend at least 3% of their GDP on defense. Do you think so? That is this because of the leading role of the U.S. that Ukraine is able to do such advances and able to resist such attack till now?
You're talking about countries increasing their defense spending?
Yes, Trump said that I will insist NATO members to increase from 2% to 3%. Even NATO members are not spending 2% of their GDP on defense, and U.S. is spending major.
We actually have seen an increase of NATO members spending more when it comes to committing to meeting defense requirements. That's actually something that this administration has been leading on and urging allies, a part of the NATO alliance, to do just that. You've seen commitments come out of Vilnius. Last year, you saw the NATO summit here in Washington, D.C., where multiple NATO countries announced further commitments to supporting Ukraine. So again, we're on the right track here. Countries are continuing to deepen their cooperation and knitting together their resources to support Ukraine. It's been incredible to watch. And that's something that you really did see come together at the Washington summit here over the summer.
Just to follow up, Turkey is also a NATO ally of the U.S. So Turkey has some kind of reservation, especially about the situation in Syria, some concerns in Syria. So is this administration able to address the concerns of Turkey?
We have a great partner in Turkey. I can't speak to their criticisms or concerns other than to tell you that we work with Turkey on a regular basis, including with what is happening in the Middle East. I'm just going to leave it at that. Joseph.
Thanks. Secretary has routine conversations with his Israeli counterpart. Was he or anybody at the department notified ahead of the operations in the West Bank over the last 24 hours?
To my knowledge, we were not notified about operations in the West Bank. We are aware that, Israel or the IDF is conducting some type of operations there. We're trying to get a better understanding of what they're doing. But to my knowledge, we were not notified beforehand.
And then yesterday there was a meeting between Arab military attaches and counterparts here at the Pentagon. Can you say anything more? Was that just a routine meeting? Was it? Obviously, with the context of everything and the backdrop of everything going on in the region, it seems to have come at a.
Could be fake news, but the person that's here to tell us direct questions to other countries and how can they kill a ghost of Kiev? He's already dead. Wasn't the whole ghost of Kiev just propaganda that they used to have more support for funneling money into Ukraine, that if we offered them a little bit of aid, they could actually supposedly win a war with Russia. And they use that to kind of say, oh yeah, Ukraine is kicking so much ass and Russia's military is so weak.
I don't know, an interesting time.
Yeah, my understanding is this was a working level meeting that happens routinely. I wouldn't read too much into the timing. It's just something that does happen.
General Ryder said that the ship that was attacked by the Houthis recently.
The So Union?
Yes, the So Union appeared to be leaking. The EU said yesterday, and then today they came out and said it's not leaking. So can you tell us anything about why the Pentagon assesses it to be leaking and the EU not?
So there is, so what I will tell you is the tanker is carrying 1 million barrels of crude oil. Those barrels remain intact right now. The vessel itself is leaking some oil from where it was hit. There is still a fire going on, or multiple fires still burning on the ship itself. Those fires have not been able to have been put out by anyone because the Houthis are threatening to attack, any type of, salvage recovery mission right now. So those fires have the potential to spread, which has the potential to get to those oil barrels, which will then obviously leak potentially 1 million barrels of crude oil into the Red Sea, destroying major ecological systems and, creating an environmental, I think catastrophe is the only word to use.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, are people shocked when... Wait, I missed one. That's exactly what they want you to think, but he's real. He's better than Maverick. Exactly. But now he's dead. Apparently today he died. How are people shocked when Russia teams up with North Korea? It seems par the course for any war. There's always going to be sides. I don't know. Makes no sense. And then they're going to say that these people are also teamed up with China, which we see a big link between Russia and China now. And obviously North Korea is going to be alongside of that. And then they come out and they have shocked Pikachu face, like these people weren't going to try and form a collaboration to defend themselves. 300,000 dead Ukrainians later. Yeah. So, at least they're still going now. They're actually pushing into Russian territory, last I heard.
Thank you for the opportunity. State Department designated terrorist group Baloch Liberation Army attacked Pakistan's southwestern province on August 26th, killed almost 70 people, including security personnel. So this group is it has strong ties with Al-Qaeda, Daesh, and TTP, the band, another outfit that has strong ties with the Afghan Taliban. So it seems like the fault line that US left in Kabul in a chaotic or dramatic withdrawal that are active now. So the question is, US claimed many times it built Pakistani forces capacity to counter these groups. So at this moment, do you have anything for Pakistan, any comments for Pakistan in this specific event?
We strongly condemn any terrorist attack like that. And of course, our thoughts are with those who lost their lives during that attack. But I don't have anything beyond that. I'm not aware of any U.S. involvement or assistance to Pakistan at this time. But if that changes, I can certainly let you know. Yeah.
Currently, just one more. Chinese Armed Forces commander visited Pakistan and he awarded...
A news article from Business Insider is now now states the Arlington employee refused to press charges per possible retribution from Trump. So I saw that he was definitely not pressing charges, but I didn't see retribution from Trump. That's an interesting spin they're trying to play on this.
Started with a higher military award. So both sides discussed military engagement, specifically the defense productions. As I asked before from the last briefing, that both countries have shared technologies, and they're also thinking to expand it. Like I asked regarding the JF-17 Thunder technologies here to Iraq. So the question is, this administration left many loopholes with its Arab allies. We have seen with the Saudi Arabia, you left space over there. China gained there. They got normalization with the Iran and Saudi Arabia. Now Pakistan is going closer with China. Anything on this? Any reservation or any public reservation or private reservations you have?
I'm not aware of that meeting, so I can't comment on it. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Rina, with regard to this Iranian attack in the region that they've been expecting for more than a month now, and that hasn't happened. First of all, would you deem that as a success of the United States, both in terms of diplomacy and military posture in the region, that might have deterred it so far? And are you still expecting it is the threat as real as it was a couple of weeks ago? Are you still alert?
So a few things, as we've said, I don't have the prediction calendar, crystal ball to predict and to forecast an attack.
This is what I can. There we go. This is what Chad's talking about. It says Arlington employee feared retaliation from Trump supporters if she reported being shoved during cemetery incident. Do they have a quote from her or what? An unnamed Arlington National Cemetery employee has declined to press charges after altercation with former President Trump's team over fear of potential retribution from Trump supporters. So she's still remaining unnamed. So that makes me question, like, how legitimate is this actually? You know what I mean? Because if she's being anonymous, anybody could say that. Any one of these journalists could kind of stir up controversy like they're trying to do now to make Trump look bad. I mean, obviously his team looks bad in this incident no matter what they do, but fear of retaliation, like if they're actually claiming that without her statement, like that's kind of I don't know. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Arlington officials claim Trump's team broke the law, which sure, yeah, he did. Broke the law. It was definitely not classy. You shouldn't push people. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Can tell you is I think we certainly got into the headspace of Iran and how they're making their calculations. You have two carrier strike groups in the region. We have said both very publicly and privately that we are there to protect our forces and will, of course, always stand in the defense of Israel should we need to. Whether that's impacted Iran's calculation, I think it has affected their decision making. Will there be an attack? I can't predict the future. I can't answer that. We remain postured, though, to protect our forces. And of course, if we need to, come to the defense of Israel.
I'll give one more.
I didn't see the supporters. Thank you for correcting me on that. Don't want to give out bad info. And the thing is, with an article like that, it could be true, but we don't know. It's more likely to be true if they actually had a quote from the person and the person wasn't being anonymous. So it could be true, but we don't know, If they're fearing retaliation, then yeah, of course, maybe they want to seem anonymous. But no, that doesn't even make sense either because the Trump team's going to know that she said that, If she was really fearing retribution, would she go to the media because of that? That doesn't make sense to me at all, right? Right? And if she was going to go to the media after saying that she feared retribution, why wouldn't she just sue them already? That's just my take on it.
Earlier this week, Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff said that since we've seen the Hezbollah attack, now we can say that there's less of a chance of a regional war. Do you share that assessment that Iran could also conduct an attack on a similar level, not something that's going to spark a regional war? Do you think their hands are tied a little bit because of the US military posture? Do you feel like that attack is going to be limited?
Again, I can't predict what an attack would look like. What I can tell you is I don't think anyone wants to see a regional war. We certainly don't, and that's why we've made the decisions that the Secretary has made the decisions to move different carrier strike groups throughout the region since October 7th, to rotate different and to bolster our force posture and our force presence in the region. You know, we announced like a month ago, we have another squadron of F-22s in the region. So, you know, we're going to continue to take the steps that we need to send a message of deterrence, because that's ultimately what we're sending. And all the capabilities that we're sending, they are there to be defensive in nature. Beyond that, I can't predict what other actors will do, other than to say that we, the United States, do not want to see a broader regional war. And we've said that from the very beginning. Yes.
Thank you. My question is about China. Okay. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing yesterday, and they agreed to have a telephone call of theater commanders in the near future. Yep. So, can you give us a little bit more about the schedule of this phone call, and is Secretary himself planning to have a phone call with his counterparts in the near future?
So I don't have any calls to announce or preview today, but we certainly welcome any time that there are high-level mill-to-mill calls between the PRC and the United States. You saw the National Security Advisor say just that in some of his readouts from his meetings. But when we have more calls to announce, we will, but I just don't have more at this time.
Israel has been airstriking countries for weeks, and it's saying that a war is coming and will defend itself, and already the U.S. Navy is around the Middle East. Yeah, they have been striking people. I know they were evacuating a lot of hospitals of the places that they were striking, trying to move people away from where they thought they were going to strike.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Jahan Zebali from Airway News, Pakistan. There were a series of terrorist attacks in Pakistan, and you just spoke about it. How the U.S. can help Pakistan rooting out terrorism from that region?
Look, we always remain willing to work with any nation that wants to root out a terrorist organization. We have good, cooperation with the Pakistani government, but in terms of these attacks, I don't have anything for you other than that. We of course condemn them. And, should anything change in our cooperation with the Pakistani government, I'm happy to keep you updated on that, but I just don't have more to provide at this time.
The defense minister was here and had meetings in this building. And a few months ago, he made a public statement that today's India goes to the safe havens of individuals who challenge India's territorial integrity and kill them. And after that statement, we have seen a killing of Sikh activists in Canada. And there is an assassination attempt on a U.S. citizen, another Sikh activist in New York, Gurpal Singh Pannu. So is there any discussion on that matter? Because India said they are still investigating that matter. There is one person arrested by the U.S. authorities, Nikhil Gupta. So any discussion on that?
I don't have anything for you on that specifically. There was a readout that we put out after the meeting. I'm just not going to get beyond that. Yes.
Thank you, Sabrina. Regarding to the West Bank operation for the IDF, the United Nations Secretary Guterres described this military operation as like a dangerous development, and he asked to stop this, and he said that's already exclusive the situation. So do you share with him his concerns, and especially when we see all the readout from the Secretary Austin when he called his Israeli counterpart, he'd always ask to de-escalate and don't take any steps that maybe make the escalation higher. So what do you say about that thing?
Well, that's something that I'll reiterate here is that we certainly don't want to see an escalation. We want to see tensions to de-escalate in the region. We are aware that the IDF is conducting operations in the West Bank, but again, we don't have an understanding of what that exactly is. We're trying to learn more about their operation. The United States supports Israel's right to defend itself against threats to its security, but as always, and as we will continue to say, it has to do so in a way that limits civilian casualties and limits damage to civilian infrastructure. And that's something that will always be imparted. And you've seen that message come through in the Secretary's readouts with his counterpart. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I have a couple on Ukraine. Today, Ukrainian foreign minister said that the Patriot system is announced for Ukraine previously by the partners have not yet been delivered. Could you speak more to that? What causes a delay here?
A specific system by partners?
Those Patriot systems that were announced for Ukraine previously.
There are Patriot systems operating within Ukraine. I would defer to them.
Most recently, during the news.
I don't have anything to read out or announce on the Patriot system. We've committed to providing them to Ukraine. Look, we continue to work with them when it comes to providing security assistance. The Patriot is quite a big system that we are sourcing different materials and component pieces from other countries to help Ukraine. I'd let Ukraine speak to that more specifically, but what I can tell you is they are getting a regular supply and support of security assistance from the United States and other, partners that are part of the UDCG. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
What do you think KJP is doing at this very moment? I'm thinking at home watching Judge Judy. Yeah, she's getting her Judge Judy and Price is Right. And to be honest, I'm getting kind of concerned. It's been a long time since we've seen her. Is she okay? Is she still alive?
You had other questions?
Expedite those deliveries given the recent massive attacks from Russia?
I think we've certainly expedited delivery of not just the Patriot, but other systems and capabilities to Ukraine, including reordering some orders by that were designated for other countries. We've prioritized Ukraine. So I'd actually push back on the fact that we haven't prioritized Ukraine as a country that needs it most. Noah.
I want to follow up on the CMC question. Was there any DoD involvement in that meeting, whether through preparation or actually during the call or the meeting itself?
On the CMC meeting?
Yeah, the vice chair.
That was an NSC-led meeting. That was, the National Security Advisor traveled to meet his counterparts. We, of course, engage at our level, but I'm not aware of any DoD participation.
And I know in the past there's been confusion about who the vice chair's counterpart is in the U.S., whether that's Secretary Austin or whether his counterpart is actually the Minister of National Defense there. Is this a sign that you think the Chinese are seeing the National Security Advisor as a more natural counterpart than the Secretary of Defense?
I think it's a side, Noah, that we are having broader and more frequent communications with the PRC, which is a good thing. We want to see that happen. The fact that the National Security Advisor, and again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the White House, but the fact that he was able to travel, engage with his counterpart, other officials, part of the government, that's a good thing that opens up communications lines here, allows us to maintain those mill-to-mill ties as well. I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up back on the F-16.
Sure.
Ukraine has acknowledged the loss of the F-16, and former Rep. Adam Kinzinger has acknowledged that the pilot lost on Monday was one known as by his call sign as Moonfish. He was one of 2 Ukrainian pilots that were actually very vocal here in the U.S.
It's Moonfish, never forget. Moonfish, not Ghost of Kiev. They get a new name for this guy. She's at home rejoicing that Biden hasn't said or done anything dumb since he's in hiding right now. Yep, absolutely.
U.S. pushing for fighter jets, going to training in Arizona. Is there any chance that this F-16 was brought down by friendly fire, by one of the Ukrainian Patriot missiles, for example?
So, again, I can't confirm I've seen the reporting. I just can't confirm it. I don't have that level of fidelity right now. So in terms of if this pilot was killed and it was brought down by friendly fire, that I just can't speak to. That would really be something for the Ukrainians to speak to. The United States has not been asked to participate in any type of investigation to look into this incident. So, our role in this is that we continue to train and equip the Ukrainian pilots that come here for training. But when it comes to this particular incident, and I understand the frustration, but I don't have anything more to offer on it.
But is there a follow-on with the F-16s that have been delivered? Is there any sort of ongoing relationship? Is the U.S. tracking the F-16s? Are you providing ongoing maintenance? Are they,
It's not just the United States. You have to remember that there's an air capability coalition that has been stood up that the U.S. is, of course, a part of. So it's not just the United States providing support. absolutely, the U.S. military is working with the Ukrainians on what they need, whether it be maintenance or, and that's, telephonic or remote maintenance support and help. In terms of tracking the F-16s, I'm not going to get into that level of detail, but we are certainly working with the pilots and the Ukrainian military to make sure that they are able to fly and operate these F-16s in the best way possible, and making sure that they're doing so safely. And we're providing that support and continuing to train. Okay, thanks everyone. Leave it at that.
All right, there she is. Pentagon press briefing.